Because their love and desire for him were so great, they were able to spit on me, pretty much. The FBI has just unveiled chilling new details in the case of D'Angelo, the man who once brought the neo-soul world to its knees, now the focus of a haunting death curse that seems to reach the depths of despair. From the quiet recording booth to the names that have mysteriously faded around him, everything is weaving a shroud of mystery that sends shivers down the spines of investigators themselves. Is this merely a tragedy of fate, or is there something else concealed beneath the glamour of music and sorrow? Before we delve into the shocking truth behind this narrative, don't forget to like and subscribe, because once you hear this story, you won't be able to forget it. There is nothing more cruel than fate arranging for two souls who once shared a deep love to be taken away in the same year, mere months apart. One through an accident, the other through illness. Two different paths leading to one ending that left the entire R&B world breathless. Many still say death never comes alone. It carries an aftermath like a somber melody repeating itself, embedding deeply into the memories of those left behind. And when D'Angelo's name appeared in the headlines in mid-October 2025, everything seemed to shatter once more. Only this time, no one was strong enough to call it a coincidence. Angie Stone, the brown-skinned woman with a voice as warm as honey and once an icon of 90s R&B, had departed 7 months prior. She passed away in a harrowing accident in Montgomery County, Alabama. The van carrying her overturned on the highway, and the brutal irony is that, according to allegations in the family's lawsuit, she was still conscious for a few brief seconds after the vehicle flipped before being struck head-on by a truck. Some say Angie was still trying to reach out through the shattered window frame, alive and aware, but it was too late. Her family subsequently sued the trucking company and the vehicle manufacturer, stating that she could have lived, but fate, it seems, did not stop there. 7 months later, the man who once made her heart melt, D'Angelo, left this world at the age of 51. The official cause of death was pancreatic cancer, a silent disease that progresses insidiously and is often only detected when it is too late. The family confirmed he fought courageously for months, spending his last 2 weeks in intensive care, surrounded by loved ones and music. But anyone who ever witnessed him perform, who saw the way he immersed himself in the melodies of voodoo, would understand. There was something in those eyes long ago that signaled his soul was no longer at peace. "Keep me in your thoughts." That was the message their son, Michael Archer Jr., stage name Suo Twain, wrote on Instagram. A short line, but enough to choke the entire R&B world. In 2025, he lost both his father and his mother. The two people who once forged an icon of love, music, and sorrow are now merely a legacy. And he, the child who grew up in the shadow of two stars, suddenly became the heartbreaking image of absolute solitude. What truly sends a chill down people's spines is not just the short time between their deaths, but the continuity, the eerie persistence in how it all unfolded. Angie died in a devastating car accident. D'Angelo, who himself survived a brutal car accident in 2005, had also narrowly escaped death once before. R&B aficionados called it an omen, a persistent shadow that followed him for 2 decades. People began calling it the death curse. No one believed it at first until they looked back at the list of people once close to D'Angelo. Musicians, sound engineers, collaborators, many of them had experienced unforeseen personal crises. But let's be honest, no one wants to believe in a curse. D'Angelo once said in an old interview, "Music is the only thing that keeps me from losing my mind." Music was the only refuge that kept him from collapsing. And perhaps it was that same music that led him to the brink as the stage lights gradually became unbearable pressure. After the release of Voodoo in 2000, he virtually disappeared from the industry. The media at the time claimed he was running away from himself. Meanwhile, family members recalled how he became withdrawn, barely speaking to anyone. He would only record in a dark room, then fall silent for months. When Angie passed, a relative said that D'Angelo was almost completely shattered. He did not attend the funeral, did not appear publicly, and only sent white flowers with the message, "My forever muse." An old friend revealed that he later wrote an unfinished song with the lyrics repeating one line. "She went before I could say sorry." No one knows if that track still exists, but the idea of a final hidden recording on his hard drive sent fans into a frenzy after his death. The truth remains unknown. What is known is that in the same year, two people once considered the soul of neo-soul, two artists who revived the musical identity of Black artists in the corporate era, both departed, one by accident, the other by illness. A son was left behind with the plea, "Keep me in your thoughts." And then, amid the condolences, a wave of skepticism surged. Was it truly a coincidence, or was something else lurking beneath the surface? A few independent journalists began to dig deeper. They noted that the car Angie was driving that day was a model that had been recalled a few years earlier due to a technical flaw, a defect that caused the braking system to respond slowly when the vehicle rolled over. A small detail, but enough for the media to ignite suspicion. Is Co-BH, meanwhile, D'Angelo's medical report, briefly released, only stated one unsettling phrase: unusually rapid disease progression. Those 4 words led people to connect two seemingly unrelated events, turning them into a narrative the music world began to call the death curse that killed everyone around him. The story spread quickly, not just because of the tragedy, but because it touched on humanity's deepest fear: the fear of losing what we love without explanation. For many, D'Angelo and Angie Stone were the embodiment of a generation that fought to maintain its identity, to sing, to love, to be recognized. And then they vanished, too close together, too quickly. The year 2025 passed with too much grief for Black music. Yet amidst the sorrow and the rumors, D'Angelo's name still stands like an unsolved enigma. People don't know if a curse truly exists, but one thing is certain: every soul that ever touched him in one way or another carries a wound, and perhaps that is what makes him immortal. D'Angelo was once the epitome of allure. His nude body in the music video for Untitled, "How Does It Feel?" drove millions wild. Yet it is bitterly ironic that this very image became the invisible shackle that imprisoned him for 2 decades. D'Angelo, who once ignited the entire neo-soul scene with a voice that whispered between fire and water, had to live with profound shame about the very body that made him famous. After that explosive success, he no longer saw himself in the mirror, only the gaze of the public, the media, the curious, and the hands that wanted to touch a sex symbol instead of a true artist. They often say fame is a sweet poison, and D'Angelo drank it to the last drop. In the early 2000s, he vanished from the stage as if he were hiding from the very light he had created. Public records show he was once arrested for impaired driving, charged with possession of controlled substances, and involved in a severe accident in 2005. The car was totaled, yet miraculously he survived. But no one truly knows what shattered more, the car or his spirit. It's said that after the incident, he barely spoke to anyone for weeks. A close friend recalled, he would just sit staring out the window smoking and wouldn't even sip water. Hours would pass like that. Following that moment, D'Angelo began to withdraw. He avoided interviews, shunned the media, and refused all promotional campaigns. The image of the man who once captivated the world disappeared from magazines and screens, leaving only the darkness of the recording studio. A sound engineer who worked with him revealed he would sometimes take weeks to record a single vocal line because he refused to tolerate even the slightest error. He said, "If I don't hear my soul in it, I won't release it." That statement, which sounded artistic, was actually the desperate cry of a man who no longer felt worthy of the very voice he was born with. Time passed, and D'Angelo returned with Black Messiah, a fierce manifesto on the pain, rebellion, and pride of Black people. But behind those melodies was a body that had begun to wear down and a mind that could no longer bear the pressure. Nearly 2 decades of battling expectations and prejudice had exhausted him. Relatives say that after Angie Stone's passing, he became frighteningly silent. There were no more spontaneous late-night singing sessions. The music that once saved him could no longer reach him. There was no more of his characteristic raspy laughter only a man sitting before a piano, silent for hours, as if conversing with a departed soul. An old friend recounted through tears. He called me in the middle of the night, saying, "I can't breathe without her music around me." The statement sounds metaphorical, but anyone who knew D'Angelo understood it wasn't just emotion. It was the truth. He lived by music. And when Angie, who had accompanied him in his early career, was gone, music became a source of pain instead of salvation. In his final months, he was hospitalized multiple times. His body was frail, but he adamantly refused to let anyone see him in that condition. He insisted, "If they see me like this, they won't remember me as I was." No photos were allowed. Not a single picture leaked, only a few lines of description in his medical records. Cold figures no one wants to read. A relative recounted that in his last days he still sang, his voice raspy and weak, but he persisted. Doctors said that every time he opened his mouth, his blood pressure would spike, but he refused to stop. He wanted to go with music, the relative said. Those who were with him during that time all agreed. D'Angelo was not just suffering physically, but spiritually. He carried an unrelenting complex about his body, his image, and the years of fame that stole his freedom. It is rumored that he once told his manager, "I want to disappear again, but this time forever." That quote was later found in a short letter he sent to his son containing only one line, "Don't chase fame, chase peace." After his death, close friends revealed that D'Angelo felt completely overwhelmed by Angie's passing. The two deaths following one another were like two cuts to the soul of music lovers, but what was even more haunting was the silence between them. Throughout those 7 months, he did not perform, did not compose, but quietly recorded unfinished fragments that no one has dared to release yet. An engineer disclosed that a file on his hard drive was named Stone Pot 2, the sequel to the song Send It On, which was believed to be written for Angie. No one knows if that recording still exists, but the title alone sends shivers down the spine, a colleague said. "He once told me if anything happens, burn all the unfinished tapes." I laughed, but he didn't laugh back. That story became a rumor, then a legend. It said that most of D'Angelo's unreleased music vanished after his death for unknown reasons. Some believe the family kept it to protect his image. Others say someone took it. The FBI's silence after seizing some of his medical records and personal equipment, standard procedure for deceased celebrities, only made everything more obscure. There is no evidence they investigated it as a crime, but rumors are always stronger than truth. The media began to dig into the past. The 2005 accident that nearly claimed D'Angelo's life was back on the front page. They claimed that since then, he had become different, pensive, withdrawn, obsessed with things others couldn't see. Friends recounted that he once said, "I think something followed me from that night." A passing comment, but when juxtaposed with everything that happened later, many believe he saw or felt something in that moment near death. And when Angie died in a similar accident, people began connecting the two events, forming a chain of haunting tragedy. D'Angelo's contradictions were always what made him unique. A man powerful on stage, but trembling before the camera. An artist who worshipped freedom, yet was obsessed with his self-image. A proud black icon who felt misunderstood and imprisoned by the very people who celebrated him. He hated being called Godfather of Neo-Soul. A crew member once recounted, he said, "I'm not the father of anything, I'm just trying to survive." Those words, looking back, resemble the disjointed journal entries of a shattering soul. D'Angelo wasn't just battling pancreatic cancer, he was battling himself, the image of the man the world forced him to become. A friend said that every time someone mentioned voodoo, he would frown as if the name itself were a curse. "I don't want to be called a legend," he once said. "Legends are for the dead." Perhaps he knew everything in advance. In his final days, a nurse recounted that he still played Angie's music, the old recordings they once sang together. When the song "No More Rain in This Cloud" played, he smiled. A tired smile, but genuine. Relatives said that moment was the first time they had seen him at peace in years. As if two souls, though in two different worlds, finally found each other through a melody. People began to whisper about a shadow surrounding D'Angelo, not in his music, but in his life itself. Trivial stories, bizarre coincidences, and the fearful eyes of those who once worked with him began to surface. Everything started with a single online comment. "You ever notice everyone close to him gets sick or disappears?" At first, the statement seemed meaningless, but within days it spread like wildfire. In reality, no one has confirmed that everyone around him was in danger. No famous name vanished mysteriously. There were no witnesses, no investigation reports, but there was something far stranger: silence. Most of the people who once worked with D'Angelo chose complete silence after his death. No interviews, no tributes, no media appearances. And in a world full of noise and scandal, that silence felt louder than any conspiracy. It made the public believe something was fundamentally wrong. A former sound engineer who worked on Black Messiah recalled that, after the final recording session, D'Angelo instructed the entire technical team to cleanse all equipment with alcohol solution, and he forbid anyone from reusing the old microphone. He said, "That mic has my spirit in it. Don't let anyone else touch it." People laughed at the time, but now, hearing it again, it carries an indescribable sense of dread. Some say it was a sign that he felt he was carrying something, an energy, a heavy burden, or simply a fear he couldn't name. Relatives said that after Angie Stone died, D'Angelo changed. He became afraid of the smell of bleach, bright lights, and loud noises. Some nights, he would demand that staff clear out the entire studio, remove all cables, microphones, amplifiers, and disinfect everything from floor to ceiling. A team member recounted, "He kept saying there was something in the air. He could feel it." Of course, this could have been nothing more than the behavior of a man suffering from illness and loss. But when the story leaked online, the internet twisted it into evidence that D'Angelo was being attacked by a physical force, something netizens later called the silent agent. There is no scientific proof, no strange substances in medical tests, no investigative findings of hazardous chemicals. But the internet doesn't need proof, it needs emotion. Small YouTube channels began producing studio analysis videos using old photos, zooming in on stains, air vents, strange light streaks, claiming to find signs of poisoning. Others declared themselves independent researchers and insisted they detected unusual electromagnetic waves in the studio where he worked. None of it was verified, but hundreds of thousands of views turned rumor into public truth. A music scholar perfectly summarized the phenomenon. People turn tragedy into myth because myth gives pain a shape. And that is exactly what happened with D'Angelo. When people couldn't comprehend why two neo-soul icons died mere months apart, they gave the pain a name, the curse. It made everything feel like it had a reason. They say sometimes the truth doesn't need to be thrilling. It just needs to be too painful to accept. When D'Angelo passed, many people wanted to believe there was something mysterious behind it, something beyond normal explanation, an invisible hand or a curse that reached out and took him. But for the scientific community, all hypotheses begin and end with one thing: evidence. And what has been disclosed so far, though brutally cold, remains the only answer: pancreatic cancer, a disease known as the silent killer because by the time it is discovered, it is usually too late to save the patient. D'Angelo's doctor, who was permitted to reveal part of his medical file, described his condition as fast-progressing, late-stage pancreatic carcinoma. This disease often causes no pain or clear symptoms until cancerous cells have already spread to the liver or lungs. By the time he was hospitalized, he was in a state of extreme debility, experiencing rapid weight loss and prolonged abdominal pain. Yet he still believed it was only stress from sleepless nights mourning Angie Stone. Only when blood tests showed a dangerous spike in the CA19-9 marker did he realize he was facing something that willpower alone could never defeat. Experts suggest that many of his personal risk factors collided at once: years of psychological stress, alcohol abuse, pain medication, chronic poor nutrition, and working to the point of exhaustion in a sealed studio environment. His immune system collapsed. His body could no longer fight off abnormal cells. A medical expert at Johns Hopkins once said, "Pancreatic cancer doesn't need a curse. It just needs time and silence." The truth is, even in medicine, this disease remains an enigma. There is no early detection test. There is no definitive cure. Every year, tens of thousands die from it, many younger, healthier, and wealthier than D'Angelo. So, in the eyes of the medical community, his death is a tragedy, but not a mystery. However, what the public still struggles to accept is the speed from diagnosis to death. Only a few months passed, too fast, too fierce, too final. Even his treating physicians were astonished. As the story spread, netizens began to ask, why did the disease progress so quickly? Was something wrong? These questions were not malicious, they came from love. But then the rumor exploded. The FBI has opened a case. Abnormal tissue samples were found. Something unnatural happened. In reality, none of this was ever proven. The FBI has never confirmed treating D'Angelo's death as a criminal investigation. Major outlets like Reuters and The Guardian only listed the cause as natural. Yet the silence of authorities created the perfect void, and the internet filled it with imagination. People built entire scenarios. The FBI seized his studio equipment. They tested his microphone, his drinking water, even the soundproof walls. A viral video claimed the sound in his studio contained deadly frequencies. Absurd, yet millions watched it. People wanted to believe the unbelievable because it made the pain feel less ordinary. But from a scientific perspective, every curse had an explanation. Doctors emphasized that D'Angelo was high risk. A history of liver issues, stimulant and painkiller use, irregular diet, chronic stress, isolation in a closed studio. In medicine, psychology is not just emotion. It shapes hormones, immunity, even the lifespan of cells. A person living under long-term stress has a high chance of cancer or heart disease. D'Angelo did not escape that rule. One physician who treated multiple celebrities once said, "The spotlight is toxic. The longer you live under it, the more the body burns from within." And D'Angelo was the clearest proof. He carried not only the weight of fame, but the expectations of an entire generation. The contradiction between wanting to disappear and being forced to shine destroyed him from the inside. A publicly released medical report later confirmed. No chemicals, no radiation, no foreign materials, blood, tissue, DNA all negative for toxins. Every parameter aligned with the natural progression of late-stage pancreatic cancer. Scientifically, the curse did not exist. It was simply the human desire to give tragedy a name. But what truly haunts people is not science, it is psychology. When Angie Stone died in an accident and D'Angelo passed shortly after, the entire music world felt a shockwave. Sociologists call it collective grief resonance, when one loss triggers another, emotionally or even physically. Maybe D'Angelo's body responded to that pain before his mind could. If the FBI did get involved, as rumors say, it was likely routine environmental samples, medical data, cross-checks, no foul play. An anonymous investigator was once asked about the case. He simply answered, "People think we look for ghosts. We just look for evidence." But science can feel sterile. Fans don't want a report, they want a reason. A reason why a man so strong could fade so fast. When science can't satisfy that emotion, people turn to stories, myths, curses, conspiracies, not to deceive, but to hold on. D'Angelo died in silence, but his legacy is louder than ever. What science calls pancreatic cancer, the world calls a curse. Two different languages, telling the same story: human helplessness in the face of loss. And in that fragile space, where reason ends and emotion begins, D'Angelo still lives, not as a patient, not as a victim, but as a mystery of humanity. When science cannot soothe, people cling to faith just to keep breathing. They say when a great artist leaves, the world is never silent the same way again. With D'Angelo, this was true. The moment the news broke, social media erupted not in gossip but grief. Beyoncé, Lauryn Hill, Missy Elliott, and millions of fans all echoed the same truth: his music shaped us. Music magazines released tributes. He was the last soul of neo-soul. He resurrected the heart of R&B. A major newspaper wrote, "D'Angelo didn't just make music, he made people feel seen." The more people celebrated him, the wider nostalgia spread, and with it, new theories. Whispers that the FBI still had his DNA samples, that they kept his microphone for further testing. No official source confirmed it, but ambiguity kept the myth alive. His death was no longer a medical fact, it became a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of the fragile line between talent and destiny. Critics began re-examining his albums: Brown Sugar, youthful, sweet, pure; Voodoo, dark, sensual, tortured; Black Messiah, political, spiritual, heavy. He wasn't just releasing albums, he was leaving pieces of his soul. A journalist wrote, he wasn't making music, he was leaving breadcrumbs. After D'Angelo, neo-soul changed forever. Maxwell, Erykah Badu, H.E.R., Anderson, Paak, all said the same: without him, our music wouldn't exist. But what haunts people most is the void. They say signs remain: a photo brightening on its own, a song playing the exact moment they think of him, strange dreams where he smiles silently. No one can prove it, but these small stories keep him alive. In the end, all theories, rumors, and debates converge on one truth. Humanity cannot bear the raw truth of death. We need something to hold: a curse, a mystery, a sign, because accepting that a soul like D'Angelo simply got sick and died feels unbearable. Science may close the file, the FBI may walk away, but in the hearts of his fans, the case remains open. Angie Stone and D'Angelo, two who once wrote the love song of neo-soul, now resting in different places, yet their names still echo together like two inseparable notes. What they left behind is more than music, it is memory, emotion, proof that some people are born to make this world beautiful, even if only for a moment. And if there is a curse, perhaps it is not death at all, perhaps it is love. The kind of love that makes people still cry when Untitled, How Does It Feel plays. The kind that makes hearts ache when Send It On drifts through the night. A curse that doesn't kill, but makes millions remember. D'Angelo's music never truly fades. It still breathes in quiet rooms, late at night, when voodoo plays and that sacred human voice rises again. His death, Angie's, the rumors, the grief, whether called a curse or fate, all reveal one eternal truth. True beauty always lives beside pain. Maybe that's why we can't stop searching his songs for meaning, not to explain, but to feel, to remember, to cherish. D'Angelo didn't vanish. He transformed into sound, into the spirit of neo-soul that still flows in millions of hearts.